Hey everybody, it's Captain Kyle and welcome to part 5 of our 5-part series on Transformers we never, ever expected to get. Now, I do want to make something clear because I've seen some comments and suggestions which were good ones, but I've been concentrating, with like a few exceptions, on mainly things from the G1 and even G2 era that we didn't expect to get, yet we got years later. A lot of people have been suggesting IDW characters, and I will do a video based on all this on IDW characters made into toys that we didn't think we'd get. And when I say didn't think we'd get, it has to be years before the introduction and the actual toy, because if it came out like a month later, come on, it's just normal marketing. Now, in this video, I am going to go over 7 Transformers we never thought we'd get, but I do have a bonus at the end, and it's actually a group of Transformers that we never thought we'd get, and initially didn't even have names. You can guess. So let's get into this. Roll that intro. Be right back. All right, so the first one on my list is one of 2 that finishes up the introduction of the female Autobots from the Search from Alpha Trion. Again, the female Autobots were kind of like, we're gonna call this a Search for Alpha Trion, and these female Autobots, who is a whole nother huge subgroup, we're just gonna leave as a kind of a footnote. Now, there's been 2 versions of Moonracer. Now, the first one came from Botcon, the Descent into Evil pack, I believe. And it's interesting how some of these characters started out as Botcon exclusives, like Chromia and a version of Elita 1. And later on, Hasbro said, hey, people seem to like them. Let's actually do that. So this, again, is one of the repaints of RC from the Energon line, and looks very similar. There's a Chromia one that's similar toned, but obviously in blue and not green. But eventually they gave us something that looked a little bit more like the actual character who appeared on screen in the Siege line. So there she is with her weapon, her fist foot thingy, which I put as a shield. And again, they seem to be getting away from it a little bit, but a lot of the female Autobots share very similar molds. Sometimes they have repainted heads or remolded heads, but a lot of them are in this very similar mold when Siege came out. I mean, we do have some other female Autobots who have appeared that have much different molds and very individualized molds, which is great, and I love that. But a lot of those original female Autobots who basically paved the way for all the other ones are underserved in the molds that they get. But there is Moonracer in her vehicle mode. I've shown enough of the motorcycle that I don't need to do it again, I don't think. So Moonracer almost finishes out all of the female Autobots that were introduced. But there is another one, which is number 2 on our list. It is Lancer. And again, similar mold to some of the others. Different head, different coloration, obviously, than Moonracer, but Lancer also has a different gun, and interestingly doesn't have the holes on the side here, so I can't put the fist thingy as a shield, unfortunately. But correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that I have covered every single female Autobot that was introduced in the Search for Alpha Trion. There's one that I missed, and please let me know, and I'll see what I can do, but if they haven't made a figure of it, can't really show it, unless there's a third-party thing. Which are a lot of third-party female Autobots out there, which is not a bad thing. Now, the transformation on Lancer, very similar to that of Moonracer, but definitely some differences. For example, the fists don't fold in, so they're just part of the bumper. And she still has the foot fist thingy that goes on the back. However, you can't really store the weapon by pushing it into the side, so you kind of gotta improvise and put it in the foot fist thingy. But there we go, the final 2, as far as I'm aware, of the female Autobots introduced in the Search for Alpha Trion. Now let's switch gears to the comic universe. In fact, the UK comic universe, where we have Rack and Ruin. And of course, Sky shows up for Rack and Ruin because 2 heads are better than 1, and cats appreciate things that are better, I guess. Now, Rack and Ruin, there have been third-party versions. I haven't picked up any. I did take a Bionicle green set, bought 2 of them, and made my own Rack and Ruin. I don't think I have it complete anymore, but this is from Cyberverse, which I have to say, Cyberverse, I didn't think much of the series when I was just looking at the toys, but as I watched it, I realized it's for kids, but it's a really fun series, and they introduce a lot of cool characters, which I'm gonna actually do a Cyberverse video on some of the characters, so keep an eye out for that, or avoid it if you hate Cyberverse. But Rack and Ruin was actually initially introduced in the UK comics as part of the Wreckers, just like Impactor, just like the usage of Topspin and Twin Twist and Roadbuster and Whirl, who were not used in the cartoon at all, and they weren't used in the US comic, but they were used in the UK one because Simon Furman needed some characters that weren't already being dominated by Bob Budiansky. There's no rivalry there. I saw them on a panel together and they had a good time, so they definitely respect each other. But yes, Rack and Ruin looked a little bit different in the comic books and had kind of hammers for, I think a hammer for one of the hands, and he looked odd. But we've got this Rack and Ruin, who was introduced in Cyberverse, and Cyberverse expanded on a lot of characters. I mean, Whirl got some good press out there, and they introduced a whole bunch of characters that are very cool, which is what my Cyberverse video is going to be about. Relax, Guy, I'm transforming him. And again, check out our t-shirt store if this is really the reason you watch these videos, is to see Sky, because there's a shirt for that. So Rack and Ruin changed into this really cool kind of armored battering ram car. He's got this, I could have used you to clear my driveway because, snow, but no, you have to be fictitious, damn it. But yeah, Rack and Ruin, very cool character, and, one of the few, like Doubleheader, who actually has 2 heads, though he has it in his robot mode instead of just the Pretender. I still don't understand the whole Doubleheader thing. So there we go with number 3, Rack and Ruin, one of the gems that came out of the Cyberverse collection. And there's quite a few of those. Next on our list, introduced in the movie, is the Alicon. Yes, it was, 30 some odd years since this character was introduced. The greedy little bastards who eat all the Energon goodies. A very cool addition to the Quintesson army. And again, I like the fact that we're finally getting Transformers that aren't necessarily Autobots or Decepticons, but other factions that might have some issues with, the other Transformers. So this is the Alicon number 4, but I'm going to bring out number 5 because he is the very similar, but a little bit different, Quintesson Trooper. Now he does have a head that makes him look a lot more like the Alicon, but I like having the distinctive heads, and he has the Bailiff's weapon from the Pit of Judgment set. But it's great to see that the Quintessons, not the Quintessons, Cyberverse, are getting some representation, especially, with their slaves. Okay, 12 million years a slave. That's not a good thing. You guys gotta rise up. So 2 very cool, they're pretty much both Alicons, but, with just a little bit of deco and armament changes and head changes. You want to definitely vary the line, just, so it doesn't get too boring. So that is 4 and 5. Now, many of you probably guessed this one, and like a certain Decepticon ship, we didn't really necessarily think it was an option. I mean, yes, there was an occasional person who was like, be nice if we had a transforming Ark, but now we have a transforming Ark. He is huge. He was actually in the show. He is stiff. I haven't played with him a great deal other than transforming him. But the Ark has been something that was just a base. I mean, we would have loved to just get a base for our Transformers way back in the 80s. Now, you can't really use this guy as a base. I mean, he's big, but he's not that big. You can, have him in the distance as, there's the base, but that's pretty much it, in vehicle mode. But this, a very cool toy that we didn't expect necessarily years ago. We would have loved one. We would have gone gaga in the 80s for it, and I think people have gone pretty gaga over it in the 2020s. But he's very cool, and of course, that brings up number 7, which we also didn't know was an option, Teletran-1. Teletran-1, who was voiced by the same voice actor, Casey Kasem, who did Cliff Jumper, and I believe Blue Streak. So just a lot more monotone when he did Teletran-1's voice. Now, Teletran-1 is incorporated and comes with the Ark, and I'm not going to transform them right now. If you have them, you know. But this is 6 and 7 of Transformers we never expected to get. But there's more. Don't worry, we have a bonus. All right, so there was a group of Transformers that we saw in the 6th episode of the cartoon, but we never got toys for it until much later. I am speaking, of course, about the Rainmakers. Let's make it rain. Not money rain, but acid rain. Stop the Autobots now. The first one we got, kind of, we could interpret this as one of the Rainmakers, was of course Sunstorm, who is a repaint of Starscream and Thundercracker and Skywarp. Very cool, e-hobby exclusive, came with Hauler as a set. And in the Armada days, we also, shortly thereafter, got another version of Sunstorm, who was based on Armada Thrust. But then once Generations and Classics came along, we got our first of the Rainmakers that are definitely supposed to be those guys. This is Acid Storm. Now, Sunstorm, there was a Yellow Seeker in there. It could have been Sunstorm, or they've changed the name later on. But after Acid Storm came out, Botcon decided to put out a set of Rainmakers. Except one of them wasn't a Rainmaker. They put out Bitstream, which is a cool name, better than the name that comes with a later pack. They brought out Sunstorm, and so these, along with Acid Storm, make up the Rainmakers as they appeared. I mean, the shades of the colors are a little bit different, obviously. Bitstream should be a little bluer, he's more teal, but Botcon included, so I'm throwing in this guy, Hot Link, who's very cool, and he did appear in the show. But in the first episode, he had his little flamethrower. He was at the roadblock that Wheeljack and Bumblebee just blew through, and, you know, Hot Link, you would think computers along with Bitstream, but also flames. So he's the one with the flamethrower. So it was very odd that we had that particular Seeker added into the Rainmakers, but they couldn't use Acid Storm again. That would be, you know, dumb, unless they changed up the deco wildly. But in the Cyberverse days, we did get an Acid Storm, as well as a Nova Storm, I believe, and I'm not sure if they called, if there was a Hot Link, but we got a number of Seekers in Cyberverse. The interesting thing about Acid Storm is in the show they were very inconsistent. The toy was sold as a male Transformer. In the show, sometimes the features seemed female, sometimes the features seemed male. The voice actress was female. So it was explained that this, unlike a certain Earth Spark Terran, is actually the first kind of gender. This one's more gender fluid than gender neutral, but it was explained that Acid Storm likes to change their gender at will. So you be you. Wasn't really explained in the show, or else some parents would freak out and some would be like, I don't like that Hasbro. I'm not going to get into that debate. But there was a set in the Siege line that came out as Target exclusives, which consisted of Acid Storm. And again, the Rainmakers didn't have names until years later, many years later. We have Ion Storm, which, okay. And then we got Nova Storm. So they took out the Sunstorm. So is Sunstorm the same character as Nova Storm? I'm not sure. Is Bitstream the same person as Ion Storm? Maybe, maybe not. Acid Storm seems pretty consistent. But the Rainmakers, we did get these guys, and we even got a Hot Link, which some people use in lieu of the harder to find Skywarp, which I luckily managed to get sometime later in a huge batch of Transformers, so it didn't cost me nearly as much. So there we have it, the Rainmakers +1 Roadblocker. But again, these guys didn't even have names, so we really didn't even expect to get them. We would have loved to have gotten Army Builder packs in the 80s. That would have been awesome, but they didn't do that. Now, did I miss anything from the G1 or G2 era? Please let me know in the comments. Also, let me know if there are certain IDW characters that were introduced in the comic, and then years later we got a particular toy. I mean, I already know about the Deadeye Duel girls and, women, and Minor Megatron, but Let me know in the comments who you want to see in the IDW follow-up video. I'm also doing one on characters in Transformers that weren't Transformers, but we got them anyway. And if I missed any other Transformer characters from G1 and G2 that we got toys later on, please let me know about them, and I will do a makeup video. I'm not going to call it an apology video. I did that before. It's a lot of fun. Check it out. But that concludes this series, but again, we have more coming down the line, including a whole series on Transformers that are different characters but have the same names, which will also be fun. But again, hope you're having fun with this. I'm putting links to all this stuff in the description. Some of them you definitely have to go to eBay. Some of them might still be available at some retail stores. You can also go to toy shows. But while you're mulling over these guys and trying to figure out where I messed up and what Transformers I missed out on, you can check out this video over here, which is actually my 5 favorite G1 Autobots, and keep an eye out for G2 Autobots coming soon. We will see you next time. As always, have fun and good hunting.